All right, well, welcome everyone. Hope you all had a wonderful holiday with family and friends. We are back, Berlin Select Board meeting, Monday, December 27th. We are virtually meeting in light of COVID-19 that just won't seem to go away. Let's see, so call to order, I have 7:01. Announcements, meeting of the Berlin Select Board are generally recorded for transmission on both the Berlin Cable Television Access Channel and YouTube. Your voice, image, and or phone number may be recorded. All right, first up, approval of the minutes, December 20th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion and a second, Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Keefe, aye.
Perfect. All right, correspondence, Margaret, I know that there's two of them. One from the Neshoba Board of Health on the upcoming flu clinic.
Yep. So that flu clinic is going to be held in the Council on Aging's room 118, at the town offices. That's 23 Linden Street on January 6th from 10 to 11 a.m. So if you haven't had your flu shot, you could schedule an appointment by emailing Council on Aging Director Victoria Flynn at coadirector@townofberlin.com, or you can call her at 978-838-2750 and leave a voicemail with her. So again, if you haven't had your flu shots, you have another chance to get them. And then the other correspondence we have, the board received an email from Mr. Robert Choate of Berlin regarding his complaint. He has a couple, one on light pollution from Berlin Auto Parts and the other on trucks idling in front of Berlin Auto Parts. So regarding the lighting, I did email zoning enforcement officer, building commissioner Richard Hanks, because exterior lighting is specifically noted in section 1031 of Berlin's zoning bylaws. So there are general requirements for lighting. Under the zoning bylaws, Richard Hanks, as zoning enforcement officer, would be responsible for enforcing the bylaws. So that's the lighting issue. On the other issue, idling, Mr. Choate noted that he had contacted DEP, I assume regarding the idling and not the lighting. For idling, the DEP recommends that individuals contact the Board of Health or the police. And again, he contacted Mass DEP, which also has jurisdiction as far as idling. Now, to try to address the idling issue, I am going to request the purchase of anti-idle zone signs. I'm not able to get them from the Department of Energy Resources or from DEP, but they still sell them. They used to provide them with Green Communities designation. But they essentially, I wish I had a picture of it, but they're a big blue sign that says anti-idle zone, and it references the statute and the Code of Massachusetts regulations for idling. So we're going to be looking at getting a half a dozen or so of those signs and putting them on town ways. As far as funding for those signs, the Energy Committee does have a special stabilization fund, which funds could be used for this particular purpose because it's an energy related purpose, climate issue, or free cash or other available funds. And there could potentially be other available funds this fiscal year. So anyway, those are the highlighted correspondence for this week.
Awesome.
Now, we just recently approved the licenses for that business, like we did with all the other businesses. They weren't called out any special one way or the other, under the with the belief that all of the departments that have licensing and regulatory stuff have signed off saying places are in compliant.
Yes.
So that business is in compliant of state rules and laws. That would include lighting, correct?
It would include lighting, yes, because
Okay.
the building commissioner would be advising or making his recommendation based on compliance with local and state laws.
Yep.
So,
well, keep us posted, Margaret. I'm sure that Mr. Choate will reach out if there's any continued issues, but appreciate you passing the information along and getting the signs.
okay.
All right, so general public comment. We have the awesome Ms. June Poland in the audience. Say hi, June. See if she puts her hand up. There she
There it is.
goes.
She
Hi,
looked at me.
June.
Hello.
Awesome. All right. June, do you have any comments for us? No, her hand went down. All right, she's good. All right, so we have no hearings, appointments, and presentations. So Margaret, we are skippy doing down the list to your TA report.
This is the holiday break, so I'll keep my TA report light too. So last year, one of the big highlights over the past week was the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee meeting last Tuesday. And at that meeting, there was a lengthy discussion on the stop sign requests at the intersection of Carter and Highland. And about 15 residents, actually 15, maybe even more, 18 residents or so attended that meeting and were in the audience, and some of them were promoted several times to make their comments. It really ended up, and I know Chris was there in the audience, and I think everyone felt that it was a really productive discussion, because not everyone agrees on the on placing stop signs there, but everyone really contributed some good ideas. And so the outcome of that particular meeting was that there were going to be a couple of first steps in the short term. The Chief Shartner is going to work with Fred on getting those mobile speed signs up. We have 4 of them that were purchased. They're going to put those up. And then they're going to look to move the 20-mile-an-hour sign about a couple of 100 feet north from where it's currently located, to help remind drivers better that the speed limit is 20 miles an hour. This is something that's going to have to come to the select board, because when the select board ages ago voted placement of that speed limit sign, it provided a precise location for it. So there's going to be a request coming back to the select board to move it a few 100 feet up the road. Believe it or not, this formal process is still required.
And it might make the big difference.
But it might make a big difference. And longer term, there were a number of things that were discussed to possibly address the traffic issues over the longer term. There was still the stop signs, police enforcement, making Carter one way for a portion of Carter, putting speed bumps, or what they call traffic trays, on the road. And yep, those were the big options that were kind of listed by a number of different residents. So it was a good discussion, and I think people felt heard. And so that was really an important first step in getting something done up there. There was some discussion about the sidewalks on Carter and how disappointed residents are with the fact that those sidewalks really are not sidewalks. They're really not sidewalks. And so it was briefly noted, I think we noted, that we do have the complete streets prioritization plan. And what we need to do is we need to strive to get some design engineering funds in place in order to move forward with either a grant funded project there or a locally funded project to upgrade the sidewalks in that neighborhood. And then the next thing I have is just kind of, I want to mention where we're at with the River Bridge Working Group following the 3rd modification of the development agreement. Our River Bridge Working Group is going to be meeting with the Sennies next week virtually on, I think it's January 4th. And we're going to be talking about the infrastructure obligations in the development, the construction obligations in the development agreement. I have also asked the Sennies to please bring with them in writing a proposed payment plan for the public safety transitional mitigation payments. As you know, they're currently overdue by $167,000 in arrears. So in order for us to productively move the conversation forward, we want them to bring a payment plan proposal forward, and in turn, we'll bring that to the select board. And that's all I have for tonight.
So Margaret, play devil's advocate in the event that they do not bring a payment plan forward. What, I'm sure this needs to come back to us to come up with a plan, and probably even KP Law or our other law partner as to what is going to happen, because I don't think that the town was very happy about delayed payment, partial payments, no payment. So are they expecting that to come from us as well? Or is that just something that you can drop and talk about.
That's what I plan to be the first thing to talk about, Peg. I want to
Okay.
see that because the way I've brought it forward is that, in order for us to move forward on the discussions about any of the infrastructure construction, we really need to settle that piece independently of all the rest. We really do. And the time has come to put something in place. Town council recommended it when we were working on the third modification, and the time has come. We need to memorialize something. So I'm going to say that they will bring something with them. If not, I'm happy to reschedule the meeting.
Okay, so you won't even go forward with it if they don't have a
I-
plan, you're canceling the meeting.
I would reschedule it. Yeah, I'd reschedule, give them time to put something together. Chris, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think that at this time we need to talk about that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right, that's all I had for Margaret questions. Chris, Scott, anything for the TA report?
Margaret, did you want to mention that, or did you? Maybe I missed it. The chair of the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee is now Chief Shartman.
Yeah, so I didn't mention that. Yes.
The vice chair is Fred Cummings.
Yep.
The parking regulations were deferred. South Street Bridge, signage for trucks. Engineering will begin soon.
Yep. So we're still working with VHB on the engineering for the South Street Bridge. There had been a question about whether the bridge should be widened to accommodate complete streets. However, there is a big gap in the complete streets prioritization plan. That bridge is actually located in an area where complete streets wasn't contemplated, and it would take years and years to bring the sidewalks down all the way through South Street. So the plan now is to reconstruct the bridge as it is. We've also learned that pedestrian bridge, you can buy pedestrian bridges prefab. A company called Contact makes these bridges that you can actually place next to existing bridges. So if it does come to the point that we need to have a crossing there, there's a potential for a pedestrian prefab bridge that could join the bridge. So VHB is also working with the town. I'm sorry. Thank you, Chris, for bringing all that up. It wasn't a short meeting.
No, it wasn't.
But VHB is also working with Fred and me on the River Bridge infrastructure construction. They're going to be putting together a proposal for the town on the bridge deck widening, on the pedestrian bicycle bridge, and on all the connecting sidewalks. So they're working with us on that too.
And Abby Vienna took the minutes.
Yeah.
The admin in police and the safety department.
And she'll be taking minutes for traffic safety advisory from here on out.
Oh, good. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Hey, Abby. All right. Scott,
Thank you,
anything?
Chris.
Nope. Okay. All right. So we are zipping down into old business. Margaret, I just read your email in regard to the amendment on the Berlin Annual Town Report Policy and
Good points that you
procedure.
brought up.
Okay.
Yep. So Chris didn't have, this is the downside to Google Docs. They don't always match up with words. So you didn't get to see the real red lines, all the red lines. So as far as the words selectmen, Peg, you're absolutely right. With the approved bylaw amendment last year, changing all references from selectmen to select board in the bylaws, that can be changed on page 2 and the top of page 3.
Okay.
I think that's right. But as far as the statute, we're not able to change that one, but
Okay.
hey, that's fine.
All right. No, I saw it and that was like the first thing that popped out. There wasn't anything major that I saw, but just wanted it to be consistent because on the front page it had select board and then you've got top and bottom page 2 and then top page 3.
Right.
Okay.
And I just wrote in my notes here when I read it earlier today that I couldn't follow the present draft to the new one, which is exactly, I guess, what you were talking about in your email, Margaret. And so I guess if I had put it into Word, perhaps I would have been able to, right?
It would have
Yeah.
converted fine to Word, but it just doesn't show up on Google Docs the same way. So
Well, and sometimes I do that. I put it into Word because I know that it doesn't do it right. But So I was going to ask if we could just bring this back next week. So I have time to look at the actual Word document.
This isn't so time sensitive that it can't wait till next week.
Okay,
Oh,
appreciate it.
all righty. So, Margaret, thank you for passing along the information on the COVID-19 safety regulations by the Burden Board of Health.
Would you like me to just give you an update on that? And
Yes, please.
all right, so the Board of Health is contemplating adopting masking regulations in town buildings. And the enforcement mechanism would be through our non-criminal disposition. So that means that citations could be issued. So the penalties on the draft regulation that they've created, and they have not approved this yet. First violation would be a warning, second would be a $100 fine, third would be a $200, and fourth would be a $300 fine. The enforcing authorities would be any agents of the Board of Health or of the police chief. The police chief has agreed to serve as an enforcing authority for this. And the one thing that the draft was missing that town council has recommended be put in are the medical exemptions. So there would be a note in there added that would exempt individuals with qualifying medical conditions.
Are we going to list those qualifying conditions?
No, we're not going to be listing qualifying conditions. We're not, because asking people what their, oops.
Oh, Scott, can't hear you. I see your mouth talking, but I can't hear you.
People could,
Uh-oh.
He'll call in on his phone.
okay. Scott, if I'm going to guess what you were getting at. And so medical conditions. So how do we know if someone is actually claiming they have a medical condition as opposed to not? So we don't have a right to ask people what their medical conditions are that require a mask. So that's where the line can get very, very blurred. And we are
right, but you can require a doctor's note. The doctor's note doesn't have to say the condition, but it could be a medical doctor that says this person has a condition that makes mask wearing hard. And we can require people who have medical conditions to have a COVID test within 72 hours of them coming into the building. That's what the FAA does for people who get exemptions for people who go on public transportation, or that's what the federal government has recommended.
If we have the resources, we could look at that. In fact, I'll mention that to the Board of Health to see if they want to put something in, so they can determine whether or not they have the capacity to do that.
You want us to vote to support their
Well, you know what I'd like to do? The board has already voted to support whatever regulations the Board of Health puts in place. So what I would like to do is, if the Board of Health puts this in place, as soon as they do, it would be really nice if the select board kind of memorialized the same regulation and said that the select board signs on to this regulation as well in support of the Board of Health. And that way there'll be that memorialized support.
If I remember correctly from last week, is that the select board has control over town buildings and properties, but the Board of Health could pass something for the entire town.
Yes.
So the Board of Health could actually pass something that would require mask mandates in all public spaces in the town.
Correct. Yeah.
And then there are steps that we can take, obviously, not that anyone wants to, but inevitably you could shut down training rooms and things like that, if unfortunately people won't comply with any of the regulations that the Board of Health comes out with, and or that are backed up by the state. Okay. All right. So we'll just leave that. We'll kind of like hang that, and we'll have it as a hanging dangling participle until the Board of Health can meet and swings their regulations into play. Margaret, with the questions that you were going to pose from Scott.
Yes, I will do that. And I will also, we have long-standing COVID protocols that are still in effect, including mask requirements. And I will brush those up for all of our staff so that they can share the information with staff, because this applies to everybody. So
correct. And I noticed that there were potential fines that were possible. So before anybody asks, I'll ask you, and with Miss June in the audience, where would that money go?
Goes into the general fund. It's a ticket.
Okay.
It's under fees and fines.
Okay. All right. easy peasy. Any other questions for Margaret on this?
Nope.
All right. So down to updates, if any, on the Bullard House grant process.
Okay, so the Historical Commission will be meeting on January 5th to discuss this. I think they really do need to take this up before anything moves forward. So they'll be meeting on January 5th. Sometime between 5 and 7 p.m. Not quite sure yet. Mary's asked June to, what her choice is. So they'll be talking about this on the 5th, and they're also meeting again on the 12th. If I have an opportunity to attend their meeting, I won't have an opportunity to attend their meeting. Scott, will you?
I thought their meeting on the 5th was to go through the Bullard House to look at items to keep or not keep. And that was at 10 a.m.
They are going to do that at 10 a.m., but I think they're also meeting that night at 5 to 7. Or they might be combining something. I'm not really sure, but I know June Miller wants to discuss this grant application.
Okay.
I have personnel and, I have finance committee that night, so that's
Yep.
gonna be a tough one for me.
All right, well, we'll pop that on whatever agenda is after that.
Mary,
10.
if you could loop the board in when you hear back from June, that way we'll know when they're planning on doing it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I get emails when they post meeting announcements on the formal website. And so I'm planning on taking time off from work to get to the meeting at 10 a.m. on the 5th.
Oh, good.
And if I have to figure out a way to make that evening work, I'll try to do that as well.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you.
All right, so onward to new business. So the Mabel Felton Scholarship Award, I had received an email from a recipient who unfortunately had to leave school due to medical reasons, but is continuing on as a commuter student this coming January. So I know that Mary was kind enough to reach back out to the family who provided this scholarship to see if once again, unlike our past recipient that also stepped out for medical reasons and then is continuing her education as well this January, if they would allow us to have approval that in cases like this, that we can just flip the scholarship from the intended college to the updated college. So Mary, have you heard anything back? I haven't seen these emails zip by. Okay. All right.
So I thought I corrected that on the agenda, but apparently I did not.
We're
It-
missing Marble. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
So sorry about that. Maybe I didn't do it right.
All right. We'll drop this on the agenda for next week and see if the family has had time to get back to us. All right. So Margaret, on to you for market rate adjustment TA recommendations for the town clerk and our town accountant.
Yeah, so as you know, market rate adjustments for certain positions below averages of our comps came before the board last week. Those totaled a little over $14,000. I have two more recommendations here, and I think there is a very strong basis for making these recommendations. Well, first of all, the select board actually called this to my attention last week with the town clerk's hours. And the town clerk is also below the average range for our market comps currently. So her hourly rate is currently $30.60 based on her annual salary for 20 hours, working 20 hours a week. My recommendation to bring her within the average range among our comps is to increase her FY22 hourly rate to $33.34 an hour to be effective on January 1, 2022. And that amount would be 6.5% above the minimum average of our comps. And then in FY23 to increase the rate to $34 an hour, which would reflect the 2% COLA over the FY22 adjusted rate. And increasing it by the 2% would allow her rate to remain on par with the average range among our comps. Of course, provided that they come in at roughly 2.5% increases, we'd be able to at least stay within that range. The other issue with the town clerk is that she consistently works more hours than her hours are budgeted for. And she's, to Eloise's credit, she's been very, very hesitant about requesting any change in her rate, any change in her hours. However, we also need to look toward the future, down the road. If Eloise was to win the lottery and we were to try to get a town clerk in the office, could we employ a town clerk for 20 hours a week? The answer is probably no.
No.
So in this respect, we need to start making incremental adjustments to reflect more accurately the number of hours that she puts in each week. So my recommendation to start is that in FY23, her salary be based on a 22-hour-a-week position. And that would at least be one step in the right direction. She's got an assistant town clerk who works 10 hours a week, and his hours are not going to shift. So once we look at the 22 hours a week, we can then determine whether or not that's getting her into the ballpark and accurately covering her hours. The next and cost, and I know that there is a real cost factor with these market adjustments to bring positions to par with market comps. With the town clerk's adjustment in the salary, you're looking at an increase. Oh, this is the salary alone, looking at an increase of approximately $3,536, and the total increase between the salary adjustment or the rate adjustment and the hours adjustment would be a total increase of approximately $7,072 from FY22 to FY23. Now, the town accountant, Berlin's town accountant, has been employed by the town for more than 31 years. Currently, there are a whole slew of issues that I've addressed here. First of all, municipal accounting is unique among the accounting profession. So a CPA may be very experienced in CPA, but it's not a position that easily transfers to municipal accounting. A municipal accountant is entirely governed by statute. So the statutes govern municipal accountants specifically, and they call them auditors or accountants. The Mass Municipal Association has been working over the past few years to try to fill voids in municipal finance professions, in the municipal finance profession, whether it's assessing directors or municipal accountants or treasurer collectors. They're all in very, very great demand, and it's hard to find someone who has any experience, never mind years and years of experience and a history of knowledge with the same town. COVID has forced many accountants out of their positions, not necessarily directly due to COVID, but because of the stress related to the funding that's been provided through COVID, through the pandemic. It has been extremely stressful, and a pressure cooker, it's turned into this pressure cooker position between coronavirus relief funds, FEMA reporting, now ARPA funding, and all of this must be monitored and tracked. So that's just exacerbated the issue. After having worked here for 31 years, the position isn't even currently at the 75th percentile of our market comps. So I ask, if the position is not at the 75th percentile after 31 years, when could it get to the 75th percentile? I think that the years of experience, the knowledge, the town's financial health and stability all need to be taken into account here. And because of that, I recommend that her rate go from 40-35 an hour, which is where she's at now, to the midpoint high-low average among our market comps, which is 43.27 an hour, and that her adjusted annualized salary be be changed accordingly. And then I recommend that the 2% be added to hers, just like it is going to be, or it would be with the town clerks, to keep the position on par with our comps. Now, the total cost difference from FY22 to FY23 is approximately $7,881 for this. So I understand that between all the market adjustments we're looking to do, we're looking at about a $30,000 now among all the market comp adjustments that have been recommended. The question then becomes, where does the money come from? While I can't specify, and I wouldn't put all our eggs in one basket, we do know that there's been kind of a renewed, I'm going to go right to rooms tax. So the town implemented the local option room tax a few years ago. In the midst of the first year, COVID hit. So we were taking in money quarter after quarter, and I could certainly show you these numbers. And when COVID hit, it went down to next to zero. In the first quarter of FY22, we have just gotten the first quarter distribution from the state for rooms tax. We went from, I want to say, $4,000, could be a little bit more than that. Hold on 1 minute. From, sorry, I've got my handy, here it is. We budgeted $6,000 for rooms tax for FY23, not knowing when COVID would reopen. In the first quarter alone, now we budgeted $6,000. In the first quarter alone, we received the quarterly distribution of $90,558.32. So if this is any indication, and I know we have to wait for another quarter to see if this is a stable number, to see if it's really trending positively, and we know we see cars in the parking lot now, but this would be one area that's non-tax, non-property tax related, that could potentially fund these market adjustments. And with respect to Prop 2.5, you've seen the school's preliminary budget proposals. They very well could eat up all of our levy increase in the coming year. So to look at non-tax revenues is going to be critical for any municipal growth. So there, I've gotten off my spiel. I've done my spiel, but these two positions are highly deserving and deserving of a market rate adjustment to be on par with our comps.
As are the others.
As are the others.
You brought forward last week. I feel very strongly that it is important to keep up with comparable positions in at least close by places.
You're right, because we have to keep in mind we're competing with these other municipalities. This is why we see, I hate to say it, town administrators are another one of the professions that just kind of go around, town accountants. People want to poach an accountant from one town to go to another town, or it could be any position at this point in time, but that's just an example.
Right, but if every town goes to the middle or to the 75%, that takes the bottom level up, just keeps ramping it up. And so we're just regularly ramping things up to the point where none of these positions are affordable for any of these towns.
It's possible, but again, we're measuring this against our current comps, so we're not.
Right, but if they're also measuring comp, whoever's at the bottom always is going to raise their things up, and that's the number. Just every year it just goes up and up and up and up until we're paying obscene amounts of money for some of these positions. I don't believe necessarily these are those.
No.
But that if the schools are going to ask for $500,000 more, and our 2.5% is not $500,000, we need to find up other money in place. We have not talked about what insurance raises are going to be. We've not talked about these raises will also increase our Worcester retirement liabilities, because that is also based on salaries, and we just raised a bunch of other salaries. I get nervous as we keep spending this money and we just came off a couple of years of pretty high increase in taxes that we're about to foist it again on the taxpayers of the town to have another big increase.
And
Well,
we
yeah.
So I
also
want
have
to be
to,
careful about this.
The other option is
absolutely.
though that you end up losing people, and then when you hire new people, you have to hire them at a comparable rate. So I would say that we need to do this. We don't want to be at the top, but we want to be not at the bottom.
Right. I think the way we get out of this is we find better ways of doing business.
How,
And that I'm not seeing that, I don't see Berlin as a whole being an innovator and finding better ways to provide services at less cost. In other words, that there are more automations. There are tasks that have been done and are still being done in ways like paying everybody every week that costs us a huge amount of staffing at not a lot of extra value to the town or to the employees.
well, I mean, I think we do need to maybe talk about that on another agenda, but you know, we have CBAs, is it, that we have to deal with that?
We do. Yeah, we do. We need some of that.
And that is part of the problem. We can't just do it.
And I should also note that between FY21 and FY22, we actually reduced municipal budgets. In order to accommodate the schools' increases, we reduced them on the municipal budget side. So we did make cuts last year. You know, Scott, you're correct. We always need to find different ways of doing things to make our work more efficient. We are always going to be in the people world, you know, in frontline municipal government. We're always going to need people. I mean, unless we can figure out a way to do everything online. I mean,
but we also need taxpayers. If we run off all the people in this town because they can't afford to live here anymore, what type of town does that create as well?
Well,
We have
that's why
people
she
who
was
struggle to
looking
pay their
at-
taxes now.
That's why she was looking at different ways to be able to afford these.
that's right. I want to look at
Our tax-
non-tax revenues to try to be able to fund these things.
Which
Yes,
the problem with something like hotel tax, even if it's a great thing right now, you
Mm.
know, it's a for-profit business. It could go away tomorrow. They could decide they want to be in another place. The corporation could go bankrupt. The number of hotels that are sitting empty in this country is pretty substantial at the moment because of what happened during the current ongoing pandemic. That one might be doing well right now, but that doesn't guarantee that it's going to go well in the future.
right. You know, to some degree, we rely on our local receipts, you know, no matter what. I mean, we do rely on our local receipts. So when we look at non-tax revenues, that's where we're typically going to look first. You know, we're not going to look at the one-time revenue sources. We're going to look at how our local receipts are trending.
And we may have
So,
other
yeah,
different areas we could look also, you know, besides the taxpayers.
Well, I'm putting it out there. It's my recommendation. I understand the concerns. Really, I do. I do, and I don't take my recommendations lightly. I just think we do need equity, and we do need to be able to retain our employees.
You know, if we had to replace June, I know we wouldn't be replacing her at what she's being paid. So
that could be. In 2018, that salary was $20,000 less than it is today. We've been averaging $5,000 a year increase in that position.
No one has asked about the increased workload, though. I mean, the complexity of the work. We have done a split
because it is highly manual.
CPA, green communities. We've done, let's see what else. Oh, and then throw COVID on top of that.
We're doing more with the same amount of people. And
I think we've increased the hours of that department pretty substantially too over the last several years.
I don't know how else we would get it done if we didn't do it the way we're doing it right
The
now.
same thing I've been saying on FinCom for 10 years is there has to be an automation way to improve the way. There's a highly manual process that there needs to be a more automated way of doing some of those tasks.
I suggest that.
And I don't
we-
see us ever, every year we say, okay, we'll do this raise now because it is underpaid, but we'll address the automation. And we never seem to go back and address the automation.
So you know who is going to give us some really good insight? Division of Local Services. I had another discussion with Tara. We have not seen this report. I had a discussion with her last week on the financial management review. We had a long discussion. She was turning the report over to Sean Cronin, the Deputy Commissioner of DLS. There are going to be something like 19 recommendations that she makes in the financial management review. And there are going to be a bunch of summary.
I'm sorry,
That a
I'm laughing at the cat.
There are going to be a bunch of summary items. And I think that might give us some, some good guidance with respect to steps forward and how to find more efficiencies, not only in the finance function, but townwide.
Are other towns doing this kind of automation, Scott? Are other towns doing this in the accounting department? I think we're comparing apples to apples now, but I don't know if we would be, if it was what you're talking about.
I know as a whole in the industries I travel in, any process that you're doing the same now that you were doing 5 or 6 years ago, you're doing wrong. That the things changed and it's at a relatively rapid pace, and that's where you're seeing those type of automations. And again, I think there's a collective bargaining, but we didn't seem to make any progress in the collective bargaining agreement. I
No,
think
we
we
did
talk
not.
about making changes in progress, and we never seem to make the changes in progress.
It does take, over my years in government, it takes an enormous amount of patience because things happen so slowly. And
While people go
I've
bankrupt in their
also-
homes.
No, I don't
No.
think so.
No.
If you look at our surrounding towns, their tax rates are higher than ours. Ours are reasonable compared
Berlin's
to the ones
home
around us.
values and the development has driven Berlin's home values. It's Berlin's location, it's Berlin's makeup has driven home values to skyrocket. That's playing into this as well. It's something we don't talk about much, but home values have skyrocketed.
And just the fact that
It is rare for me
mean,
to
I
have
was in-
conversations where people don't complain about the rate of tax increases in this town. I don't know about the other. Maybe I'm traveling in odd circles where that everyone else in town thinks with it. You're right. We are slightly lower than the towns around us. That we should
we
be
are.
raising it so we can compete better in salaries and we can provide more hours for some of these places. But those are not the conversations that I hear in town. And maybe more of those people need to speak up to say, yes, I think for us to be paying better and for us to have more hours for some of these things, we should be paying higher in taxes. But those are not the people who are talking to me.
Right. And that could be true.
Our assessor's office and collector treasurer's office received very few complaints this year about the increased tax bills.
They're just complaining to Scott.
I guess so. Well, that happens too. That happens outside too. But no, usually there's a flurry of calls and there wasn't that same flurry of calls this year.
And I do think it's so important. I've learned, because I was in the same place that probably you were many years ago, where I didn't like, increasing the budget, raising taxes ever. And then I realized we're losing good people and because we're not being comparable to the places surrounding us. And we have to be comparable. It doesn't mean you have to be the highest though. You just have to be in the ballpark. So, and I think that's what Margaret's trying to do. So I would support these recommendations for the market rate adjustments. I think it's going to be important for the future to take care of our employees, and they need to feel as though we support them too.
I should note that the Personnel Committee will be taking this up on Wednesday night. So you're getting this first before the Personnel Committee this time.
Okay.
I mean, I'm in agreement. I mean, it's these two positions, they rarely ask for any type of increase, and they're usually the ones that push it back. These are two very important functions to the town, not to say that the other ones are not, but these are important. You know what, I'm in I'm a bit in Scott's pocket as well. I hate spending money. I hate seeing taxes go up. Scott, I've heard them as well. Oh, my taxes went up by $1,500 this year. And I'm like, "Ooh." Berlin doesn't really have a lot to help offset the taxes, but at the same time too, yeah, if we want qualified people to stay, then we need to show them that we support them. And, this is just the beginning of budget season. I'm sure that there are going to be tons of battles over what gets in the budget and, what bright, shiny new object gets asked for that, you may have to say no to, that, you only get one of something where you wanted two with that. And people have to understand, we're going to push back on the school. We know that we're not the only ones to say yes or no to this. That finance is going to come at, us with both barrels of, why should we, this needs to be reduced, this needs to be cut. It's going to be a tenuous battle this year for budget, but for these two positions, yeah, Margaret, you know what? I would support your recommendations as well. Let's think about it. Let's just play devil's advocate. And June, go into your kitchen and go get a cup of tea right now. She comes in tomorrow and she says, I'm out in 2 weeks, I'm done. We're in a big hot mess. We're in a big giant poo sandwich. If she was ever to go, the amount of work that office does, the amount of work that Eloise and her office does, we need to do our part to step up and say, we appreciate you, more than saying we appreciate you in the occasional thank you in an email. I'm willing to put this on the budget, and then I'm willing to go to battle. It's a hill that I will die on if asked for. And others I won't die on. I will simply say no.
And
when they come up.
it
Right,
is.
but a January
weird.
1st change takes it out of the hands of FinCom, because you're not going to undo it with the next budget. That would be, it would be entirely wrong to undo it with the next budget.
The personnel committee, again, hasn't taken these two items up yet. The personnel committee could discuss, and I will ask them to discuss, effective dates for these adjustments. If these go on FY23, they're put into the budget as increases. It's not a done deal in FY22. Same thing with the other market adjustments that came before the board last week, where the board said, mid-year FY22, those could also be treated as adjustments in FY23. So there are a couple of things that we could consider here, and I'm happy to talk with the personnel committee about their thoughts on that.
Well, this is the first time we've ever had someone come in and do a study on salaries that people receive. And I think we should have probably done it a long time ago, and we just didn't. So, I think we need to at least give credit where credit's due to the employees that are not in the ballpark. And that's just it, Peg. But like you said, you have to watch where you put the money.
Mhm.
You don't throw money at everything. You have to put money where it matters most. And
Yeah,
I think employees is a very good place to put it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, some things that may be asked for in an upcoming budget. Yeah, it's going to take an act of something
You
to
have
get
to
me to
show
say,
need.
yeah,
Show need.
and that's just it. And it's something that I said last year, and it's something that I said to finance. You know what? You clearly have to define it as a must or a want. If it's a want and it's, this, that, and the other thing, no. If it's a must and it's absolutely critical, then okay, yeah, I'm open for a suggestion.
Then we try to make it work. Yeah.
Correct. But for these two positions, I consider this a must. I don't consider it a want.
I do too.
So, I mean,
So hopefully personnel will think,
yeah,
good luck to them in thinking about this also.
I mean, so Margaret, what we can do, I don't know if you're looking for a vote tonight on the recommendations, or if you want to slide until next Monday when we meet, and either ask somebody from personnel to come back with their thoughts, or you could represent personnel to come back, and then perhaps then we could make a vote of a, yes, we accept your recommendation, or no, we don't. This
All right,
way
let me
we
talk
get a
with-
little bit more skinny.
Okay, let me talk with personnel then on Wednesday night. We can come back next week and I can give you an update or invite
Okay.
someone from personnel to come.
All right. You know, and I also agree with Scott. We talk and talk and talk and we don't do. So you know what? Now it's time to, you know, put our foot to the metal and start pushing some changes through. People aren't going to be happy. A lot of people don't like change. I love change. I like chaos theory, but it's going to get us to a place that needs to happen. So
Well, I don't have the expertise that Scott is talking about, so I wouldn't know where to begin.
Well, one of the things that we can look at as we move forward is the treasurer collector just got Vadar. You know, he's
Mhm.
now set up with Vadar. Treasurer collector, assessors, and accountant now have a Vadar system. You know, we could potentially look at one or more of the big three departments uploading their invoices, you know, to Vadar for accountants review. It's not going to eliminate the accountant's requirement that they produce paper, which is something that municipalities are stuck in the dark ages with some things, but it could provide a little bit more efficiency in those areas. So there are things we can look at. And that will probably be noted in the financial management review as well.
So Margaret, do you know when that's coming? That'll be. ready
Oh,
for
it was
us?
supposed to, I was hoping for it this week. I
Okay.
really hope. I'm gonna poke Tara again. I just talked with her the other day, so I'll talk with her again, see where it's at.
All right, maybe we can put on towards the end of January, just like a blank placeholder for now, that we talk about, you know, these recommendations that you're gonna get from Tara, and also we just pick a department and see what we can do with Vadar for them, because if we don't start, we're gonna be sitting here 6 months from now having the same exact discussion with the same exact result of squat. Okay. All right. So we'll put, Mary, I know that you were on the agenda for next week as to you and I have been going in and out of it. If you could, if you're in there before I get there, if you could move over the market rate adjustment for next week. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right. So
Scott, I think we can't understand you again.
he's just,
Oh, you're on mute now.
no,
No.
we're gonna have to get Scott some cue cards so he can just write and hang them up.
That make anything better?
There you go. You're a little feedbacky, but yeah.
Who approves, or what is the process to release CPA funds for administrative support? Because there is administrative burdens to the town for the tracking of CPA stuff.
Yeah, that's actually Community Preservation Committee, and they have met and they have developed a draft job description that's going to the Personnel Committee this week for review. So, yep, so they're looking
But
at,
not administrative to offset the accountant or treasurer's budgets because of the work that they have to do to
Mhm.
tracking CPA.
they're not allowed to use those to offset the accountant's budgets. Nope, it has to be in support of the CPA committee only. But we're looking at, I think the draft will include things such as financial monitoring for the CPA. So maybe there can be kind of a, you know, this position might be able to help facilitate some of the work. It's not going to eliminate it.
Maybe they can spend 5 hours a week at the accounting office processing all the checks related to the CPA.
They could do a whole bunch of things CPA related, as long as it's directly CPA related.
Okay. Well, definitely more to come on
Mm,
this one. I don't think our discussion is quite over yet on this one.
I
All
think we
right.
need somebody COVID related too.
All right, so Margaret, no notices of intent to appoint this week?
No, not today. Nope,
Not today.
not
All right.
today.
All right, then next up, last of our new business is the local licensing authority approval of One Tail Grill Restaurant located at 60 Highland Commons. Request for change of local license manager to Michelle Doucette.
Okay, all the local reviews have been done and the payment has been made. And the board just needs to approve the change of the license manager to Michelle Doucette.
So moved.
Second,
All right, move, a move in a second, a motion and a second. Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
All right, congratulations, Michelle. Wish you the absolute best. All right.
Actually, he has to go to the state next, but then right after
Okay.
the state, then she'll be in.
Awesome, perfect,
Great.
thank you. All right, next up are board questions, comments, liaison updates. I know it was a holiday week, so there's probably not much.
Well, I had the traffic safety advisory, but I managed to add on.
Squeeze that in.
Margaret had to say.
Okay. All right. And Scott, I know that you're gonna have some upcoming busy time with historical. I just saw something whiz across the screen for a meeting, so I'm sure there'll be lots more budget, lots more chat about that. And then I've been working on the awesome town report select board.
Ah,
Did it.
yes.
I'm up to
Nice.
4 pages. 4. Chris,
Oh
how
my
many
gosh.
how many
You get
did you have?
250 words.
I forget how many I had. Yeah.
All right.
I think
Well-
I think I had to, I wrote down all the information and then I had to compile it into something that was readable.
Well, and that's what I did, is that I've been going through Margaret's notes. Mary was kind enough to like shove everything in the drive. So I've just been going and grabbing major things and just throwing them on the
Yeah.
paper and then going back down and then remembering, oh, I don't need to talk about that. That's somebody else. Oh, I don't need to talk about that.
Right,
That's somebody
right.
else. So I know that we have it on the agenda, I think for the 10th, to review it. So the goal is maybe to get you out a rough draft this week, to at least start looking at it and thinking back and going, oh, hey, you forgot. Oh, hey, you forgot. Because sometimes after you look at several weeks and months of notes, you just miss stuff. you
Yeah.
know, on that. So I will get that out to you guys for a gander. And again, just shoot me back, or in our next meeting, just shoot me back, hey, don't forget, and we'll get that in good shape. All right, yep, 4 pages. Woohoo! And you thought that my item updates were wordy. Yeah, wait till you see this one. All right. All right, so I think we're good for liaison updates. So moving down to executive session, we have none scheduled. So at 7:57, and again, I apologize for the cat walking by. Now my cat is forever on our town meetings. Dear God. Well, it's
just
either
thought-
my cat or Scott's dog. I know, you just saw the tail and I'm like trying to like
Oh,
kindly like,
I saw more than the tail, but
I
you
think
know,
we
it
saw more than the
reminded me-
tail.
It reminded me when that guy, do you remember seeing something probably on social
she's
media?
moving.
This is one thing. This is
Oh,
one thing I can do when I'm home.
hi, Cassie.
This is
Oh.
Cassie.
Eh,
God, there you go.
Oh, I love my
baby.
mommy.
My baby girl. Who's on there? Who's
There you
that?
go, forever
Hi.
immortal, forever immortalized. All right.
Remember when
Okay,
the guy
there.
go- The guy
Okay.
had a cat face.
Oh, yes,
Oh, yeah.
he
In a
was,
Zoom
It was a
meeting?
judge. It was a
It's a
judge that had a
judge.
cat face filter on.
yeah,
Yes.
it was
And
a
I thought
judge.
that was Peg tonight.
Yeah, no, that was a judge. Yeah, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I'm not really a cat. I'm like, oh, great, let me hire him as my lawyer. All right, so with that, the new year is coming up. Wish everyone in town a safe and happy new year, and I will take a motion to adjourn.
Happy New Year, everyone.
So
Good
moved.
night.
Second.
All right.
sorry.
Oh, all right.
Ready to
Stone-
jump.
Okay, all right, all right, Stone Eye.
Hawkins eye.
Keep-eye.
Now go,
Yay.
Margaret.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New
Everyone,
Year.
see you in a week. All righty, bye-bye.
Good week. Bye.